Well, last night's Rapides Parish School Board meeting, the board adopted several new policies that will change the scope of the 2023-2024 school year. Bennett Rowland Jr. is in the studio breaking it all down. Bennett?
That's right, Dylan. Coming into Tuesday's meeting, there were several items on the agenda that could greatly affect parents, teachers, students, and administrators. Let's break it down, starting with pay raises. RPSB's fiscal year begins July 1st, and all employees can expect to see at least a 4% raise. Additionally, workers in food service and maintenance will see a larger increase, making their wages competitive with those in similar markets. The board also approved faculty and staff to receive an additional check at the end of May, in addition to their salary check. This stems from 2 sales taxes required to be paid out to all employees. Now, perhaps the item receiving the most feedback is the revisions to the board's discipline policy as it relates to the uniform policy. First off, there is still a uniform policy, despite the fact that 80% of those who took RPSB's survey on uniforms voted against it, leading many to question the point of conducting the survey. Here are some important revisions to note about the uniform policy. All natural hairstyles like braids, twists, locks, and cornrows are permitted. Additionally, hair can be dyed in colors other than natural colors. Previously, the only acceptable colors were black, brunette, auburn, or blonde. Black and white style polo shirts are now allowed, and students now have the choice to wear a belt, though it's still recommended. The board is also cracking down on the use of tobacco and vapes. The consequences differ depending on the grade level, but as Superintendent Jeff Powell shared last night, vaping and tobacco use has no place in our schools. Dylan, finally last night, all 12 members of the Better Facilities Strategic Plan Advisory Panel have been selected. The panel will oversee the plan that could make Bolton High School a K-12 academic and performing arts academy. Powell shared that all members would be notified today.